Sup, nerds? Today I'm doing a little collaboration, collaborative collabby video with a channel called Smiles&Schemes. I'm going to link his channel in the description. We got together and we had the idea to go over a whole bunch of out-of-the-box character designs that we've come up with over time. We split them into 2 videos. There are 10 total, with 5 in each of our videos. So I've got 5 here, he's got 5 there. So go check out his channel and that video when this is done. This was a ton of fun to make, and it took a while to get thrown together. I appreciate you guys watching the video and hanging out, and I'll see you later. Okay, so the first one here is it's a character that I'm actually playing in a game right now. I'm kind of fortunate enough to be the forever DM that managed to find another forever DM who took me in as a player, and he's great. It's a great game. So here's the character. I started with the background first and then built up from there.
Okay.
So it's a charlatan goblin. He's like a thief, a con man, a hustler, a liar, which makes you think rogue, but he's not really a rogue. The concept that I ran with was that to escape the law, he started pretending to be a cleric, like he took refuge in a monastery somewhere with a fake it till you make it kind of way, trying to blend in, which I think would absolutely entertain and please any trickster god out there into giving him whatever he needs to pull that shit off. So I did take a couple levels in rogue. If I go to 3, I could take mastermind or thief or something like that, but I poured most of the levels into cleric and trickster domain, and I've spent the entire game with the fake it till you make it. So with trickster domain, I can use I could use my action to go invisible, and then I can use a bonus action to rob somebody. In combat, I could steal ammunition or tie their shoelaces together or something like that. And I really do try to play it as goofy and involved in that kind of way as I can.
I do have a question though. When it comes to your goblin, cleric, trickster, what is the current subclass of this goblin? Because when you said constantly pickpocketing people in battle, there was one really crazy thing that jumped into my mind, and I just wanted to hear your thing first and see if maybe that's the route it went.
That thief subclass can pickpocket as a bonus action?
No, the cleric subclass. What is your cleric subclass?
Oh, he's a cleric. He's the trickster domain.
Okay.
Why? What's your thinkery here?
Well, trickster is really good thematically, and actually too, that is probably one of is probably the best choice when it comes to just general mischief and mayhem. One build that I was actually, and it's really funny you started bringing up, there was this build that I was trying to work on for a different thing on my channel that I've referred to as the battle thief, and literally it's you take 2 levels of order cleric, and I think it's a 30-foot radius around you. You can use your channel divinity to do effect, and if creatures fail it, they're charmed by you, and while they're charmed, you can command all of these creatures to drop whatever they're holding.
Okay.
And when you're oh, I was going this cleric rogue, I'm wait a minute.
No. So with order domain, you could just get everybody to drop their weapons, and then you run around picking them up?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to maximize the stupidity of that build, where even one point I was looking into Battle Master Disarming Strike, because that's just another way you can get people to just drop stuff.
That's really funny. That's a really funny idea. I love the idea of finding a way to make them drop their weapons so you can be yoink! Enjoy being unarmed.
And even too, just I love the thought of just this character just having this big almost an armory on their back of just all of these different weapons that they've taken from these accomplished warriors throughout their time. And even if they can't use them, it's well, this is a weapon that I took from this really powerful guy, and then just kind of collecting I really do like the flavor though of the trickster god looking at this guy being oh man, I want to see how this plays out, and just...
Yeah, exactly. And so he's a cleric, but in his own mind, he's not a cleric. He's really just trying to make this shit work. So, like, thematically, like, long rests he spends, like, reading this cleric book, trying to figure shit out because he's been assigned to do this task and, like, help these people out, but he has no idea what he's doing.
When he starts like casting spells, is he just like gaslighting himself into thinking it was something else? He uses like guiding bolt, and he's like, "Oh, thank God, this like, you know, this thing, like this other thing happened that was like completely irrelevant to like me motioning in the air." Like,
Yeah, I've done things where, like, I've started casting one spell. Like, I've casted a spell but made it appear like the cleric thought he was doing something else. Like, all right, I'm gonna hurt this bad guy, and then I accidentally use, like, cure wounds on the guy in front of me, and I'm like, oh well, that worked out, but it wasn't the plan, but it worked.
just that easy.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun trying to, like, really lean into the charlatan background. So as we're traveling from, like, town to town or inn to inn, you kind of work with the party to look for marks in the tavern and try to scam people for different things.
Yeah, it's like a man of God is like the last person that a majority of people would suspect.
Exactly. So he uses it to his advantage.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so what you got? What's your first one for today?
So this is the build that I like to refer to as the bard that did the deed. We're all familiar with the memes of, like bards and dragons and the special way that that's blossomed with the community. Just thinking about it, there's actually a bit of lore that sometimes actually kind of makes that canon in D&D.
All right, like Shrek 2.
Oh God.
Yeah, Donkey's a bard. You can't change my mind on that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Donkey's a bard, bro. He fucked the dragon.
Yeah. Oh my. Nobody sings too. It's like, oh my.
That's in your brain forever.
Yeah, it is. Donkey's a bard.
Mm-hmm.
Donkey is straight up a bard. Anyways, now that I have to deal with that mental image of just Donkey being a bard.
Well, yeah, I mean, Disney already did or Pixar did the mental image of a donkey making sweet, sweet love to a dragon, but I'll round it off by putting a lute in his hands.
Okay. So, the concept for this build is very much so like bard and dragon make sweet, sweet fade to black, and then 9 or so months later, there's a little bardling.
Mm-hmm.
Or a little dragonling, kind of depending on like who was whom in the situation.
I want to not think about that.
Okay. So with Draconic Sorcerer, one of the lore-based things is you might have had a parent somewhere within your lineage that had a deep interaction with a dragon, or maybe even too, there was a dragon that was in disguise that was in a part somewhere in your lineage. And then you being the descendant, through some latent genes and magic and such, you are the one that's, showcasing the draconic lineage.
Right.
With Draconic Sorcerer. So I thought it would be really silly if you had a Draconic Sorcerer and then a Bard. And the fun part is depending on like how you want to take it and, who may or may not have left to go grab milk and who you ended up staying with in your developmental years, showcasing like if you're more of a Bard or more of a Sorcerer.
Huh.
With Sorcerer, you're going to be focusing much more on damaging spells. You're going to be focusing much more on things like, your meta magic, and that's going to be a really strong facet. And you might have this curiosity towards, your more, a humanoid lineage, and then that might lead you to, going into things like Bard, where you start to learn more about like healing and like, their knowledge and lore. And on the flip side, let's say for instance you're more with like, your humanoid family, you would definitely be working on things more of like your performance aspects, more of like your lore building and like cultivating these studies. And then you'd probably have this little trickling of Draconic Sorcerer poking out, and that can be very valuable in giving you some low-level damaging spells that you can upcast in addition to meta magic that you can use for your Bard spells as well.
That would be cool.
And then also, because both of them are charisma, you have this nice little duality where
It's baked in.
they synergize really well, yeah.
And all you got to do is just try not to think about what it looked like when your parents were together
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
You just have to...
Never think about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what we all have to do.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit worse with the lizard. Did you know that lizards have two dicks?
No, that is not something that I knew.
Yeah, well, speaking of things that I'm going to put in your brain forever, lizards, it's not like they have two, it's just lizard reptiles, it has two prongs. So it comes out like, they look like maracas from hell. So, so while Dragon Dead was playing Cuban Pete.
You're going pretty deep into this for someone that doesn't want to think about it.
Well, it's like the pink elephant, like don't think about a pink elephant, and all you can think about is a pink elephant.
Yeah, but there's lore-based stuff of like a dragon transforming into a person.
Yeah, okay, that would be better. That would be better because then
there's literally stuff in like the monster manual and the draconic sorcerer lore of like, hey, maybe this is something that happened rather than like your average
dragon putting on some Marvin Gaye.
Just like your average dragon just playing some Marvin Gaye and just
putting on some Teddy Pendergrass.
Good Lord, God of hosts. Anyway, so
check out my maracas. Chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom, chick chicky boom.
So anyways, in addition to having Bard Sorcerer, even if you take one level of Draconic Sorcerer, what's really fun is that you gain a lot of these features that make you much more tanky. So literally at level 1, you gain a feature that lets you add your base dexterity. It's like your AC is like 13 plus your dexterity modifier. What's also really fun about this is that you get the feature Draconic Resilience, where, first of all, every level past 1 that you gain through Sorcerer, you gain an additional 1 hit point. So that's fun. So you get that extra little hit points there.
All right.
But in addition, while you're not wearing armor, your AC is 13 plus your dexterity modifier. So if you didn't dump dex, you can be pretty tanky.
And there's other ways that you can raise your AC as well, right? So that's pretty cool. Yeah, you could be a pretty beefy little bardy. Plus, it would play into the bard theme a little bit more because, I mean, bards can wear, like, light or even medium armor, I think, just in the base, like, class. So, and this would sort of take that out of it where you could just be wearing your fine silks,
Your fine silks and dragon skin.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to going Draconic Sorcerer, I think that a lot of the dragon type...
Would you have to go Dragonborn?
Maybe?
I mean...
Possibly? It's up to you. There really isn't much of a synergy outside of this. Like, there are a lot of different dragon or Draconic Sorcerers that are, like, to every race in D&D. It's just, like, that's just kind of where it happened.
Right.
And as I mentioned before, it's like you can have the Draconic parent shapeshift into a humanoid figure. Mm-hmm. But looking into Draconic Sorcerer's types, you're based off of a certain dragon. And I think it would also be really cool if you could kind of merge some of these with the different bard subclasses. Or like, let's say, for instance, you're like a black or a green dragon. You're kind of like these sneakier, more conniving sorts of Draconic Sorcerers and, dragons. And then synergizing that with something like a Whispers bard or even maybe more of like a Spirit bard.
Oh.
Where you've got kind of like this almost like kind of like sneaky, more conniving, or like very much to like death and decay. But then on the flip side, you can be like a silver or a gold dragon or like a bronze dragon. You might have something where you're more interested in being like a glamour bard or a lore bard. And in these cases, it's more of like this righteous, more flashy aspect. Because I feel like very much like with the draconic sort of pride, like a glamour bard being like, hey, look at me, is like very in character.
Yeah.
And then also too with dragons being very much so about collecting things and like collecting either like artifacts, treasures, or knowledge. I feel like lore bard really does step into a lot of that kind of energy.
Oh yeah, I like that.
So you get some really nice flavoring depending on like how you want to take this.
You know what the whisper bard would whisper? My dad had 2 dicks.
I thought you were about to make, what the whisper bard would whisper, and I thought you were going to say carelessly.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, instead of be like, yeah, like...
Yeah, it's too bad they don't have a saxophone in the instruments.
There's gotta be, like, I mean, as a DM, you could just homebrew in a saxophone just to be like, yeah, like, why not?
That's fantastic. You could just say it's a horn. Or maybe it's one of those instruments that everybody has to Google before they pick because nobody knows what they are. Like a glower or a truckle or whatever.
Yeah, we got a lot of those. We got a lot of those in D&D. It's like, why these?
Yeah. I'm a master of the truckle.
That sounds...
Kind of sounds like you shouldn't let that guy near your kids.
Yeah, just very like, that sounds dirty.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I don't like
It's
it.
like, I'm a trockler, and it's like, okay, buddy. Takes like 3 steps away from this person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, now that we've dived around that rabbit hole a little too deeply.
Okay, so here's the other one. The next one. Horse ninja.
What?
Yeah, horse ninja. Okay. So centaurs are horse people.
All right.
And
Yes.
centaurs start with 40 feet of movement.
I thought you started with 4 feet.
Yeah, they get 40. Oh,
I'm
four.
sorry.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry. That was such a
god.
dumb joke. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That was like an ultimate dad joke. So, yeah, they start out with 40 feet. They get better unarmed damage because they punch with their hooves. And, the trade off is that they suck at climbing. And I put my centaur into monk and rogue. Some people might think, hey, if you put 3 levels in rogue for the thief subclass, then you don't get any penalty for climbing. But eventually, monks, in this case your horse, can just run straight up a wall. I think rogue is good for like 2 levels. So you can get cunning action. That way you can dash or hide or disengage as a bonus action because you're a sneaky horse. Monks can do this, but it costs them key points. This way you can save your key points for turns when you want to use dodge or flurry of blows. In this case, probably flurry of hooves. If I were to get 3 levels in rogue, though, I'd probably go with scout or assassin. So a scout can run half their movement as a reaction when an enemy ends its turn within 5 feet. And you don't provoke attacks of opportunity for that. With this idea being a horse monk, though, half your movement will basically allow you to run to Egypt when it isn't even on your turn, just as a reaction. It doesn't have to be used as an escape. If something comes close to you that's almost dead or kind of not worth staying next to it, you could use your reaction to move, like, by level 6, I think, half your movement speed is like 35 feet or something like that.
That's a really cool feature. And even too, I feel like a lot of people play rogues as these like default like burglar, thief, kind of like, pickpocket. But I feel like the rogue actually can do really well as just sort of like a marksman, assassin kind of character. And like being able to run that far away in and out of combat. I mean, this is before you even take something like the mobile feat, where it's like, oh, a creature ends its turn in your space, and then you dip out with like an
Oh,
extra
yeah.
like
We're definitely taking mobile
you
feet.
dip out with like an extra like you said it was like 35 feet by what level with this?
I think it's like by 6 or 9. Eventually, your movement speed gets like way out of control with the mobile feet and being a horse and being a monk. The other subclass, if I were to go for level 3 for rogue, the other subclass I would get would be assassin. You get some benefits for like early combat rounds as assassin rogue, but you get proficiency with the disguise kit, which means that you could disguise your horse as not a horse. You could be a cow, like a cow ninja. Or you could disguise it as like 3 kids in a trench coat who have in turn disguised themselves as a horse person.
I don't
know?
even know how to begin to like process what
really
you
dumb.
would use that part for, where it's like I'm gonna make my centaur form look like I'm 2 dudes in like
Yeah.
a horse costume.
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
I think
and
that's
it's like I
hilarious.
was really a centaur the entire time, and it's like what?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do these things just because we can, though. That's the reason why we do these things.
I love it. Anyway, for the feat, definitely get mobile. In addition to your higher level monk abilities, it's just going to completely negate any anti-climbing negatives of being a centaur. And this way, by like level 9 or 10 or so, maybe 11, I think. I think minimum 9, maximum 11 with this build. You can sprint 195 feet per turn at a 90-degree angle straight up a wall, and you're a horse.
This almost reminds me of like the mountain goats, those where it's like the goats that literally will like scale
Yeah!
like cliff faces, where it's like, this goat, please stop. This is an 87-degree cliff, and he's like, I didn't hear no 90 degrees, and just keeps going.
Yeah, it's like standing on like a crack in the Hoover Dam in the middle of it, just like chilling out.
Those fish that swim upstream, like up a waterfall, and then become a dragon. It's like that with like goats, where it's like, Okay, wait, no, I want to clarify. I want to preface this. I realize.
What fish becomes a
No,
dragon?
okay. I want to preface it like I understand a lot of fish swim upstream, like literally up. Okay, there's
Yeah, I was with you, and then you said he's a dragon.
no
And then
there's stories of like carp and koi that don't characteristically swim up waterfalls and stuff like that. And there's a story where it's like the carps that have the ability to, like the koi that have the ability to do this, they become a dragon. It's actually part of the. I don't know if you're big into
Oh,
Pokemon,
goddamn!
but that's actually part of the lore of Magikarp and Gyarados. Like that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah,
Magic,
how a koi became a dragon.
yeah. Magikarp swim. I mean, granted, this isn't how it goes in Pokemon, but the story is the carp swims up the waterfall and then reaches this gate and then jumps, like takes this one final leap of faith, crosses
Right.
through it, and then flies out a dragon.
Okay, all right.
This is not the build I have for today. Just
Yeah, for a minute I was like, this guy's lost his damn mind.
I'm not just crazy. I'm the real deal.
All right. Do you have another build set up?
I do.
Okay, so
I have this one build that I've been cooking up, and it's very silly.
how silly? Is it double dick dad silly, horse ninja silly, or small man that can turn a door into a wall silly?
It's you just sort of zen out every creature that would be hostile towards you, kind of silly.
You're a dealer.
No, you're a capybara.
Oh yeah, I want a capybara so bad.
Oh my god, they're so cute, and they're just like these things are just like.
I just want to hang
Oh my
out in a
God.
swimming pool with a capybara and like eat fruits. You
Oh
know?
my god, that's part of the dream.
Okay, so you're a capybara. What do you do?
So this one is going to be much easier to bring about than some of the other builds we've talked about. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go custom lineage. And preferably use the base of a swimming race, like Triton or Grung, or just like any sort of like base race that has a swim speed, because then that gets transferred over to your custom lineage.
Right.
And so now that we've taken care of the swim speed, because yes, capybaras swim, that is an important part to this build. You're gonna want to go 11 levels of monk.
All right. That's a lot of monk.
It is. Particularly what we're going to be going in towards is the open hand monk, because we get the feature tranquility. Beginning at 11th level, you can enter a special meditation that surrounds you with an aura of peace. At the end of a long rest, you gain the effect of a sanctuary spell that lasts until the start of your next long rest. The saving throw DC for the spell equals 8 plus your wisdom modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So what this does is you basically have the spell sanctuary that's up for your entire existence unless you strike first.
All right. They just got to think before they hit you. Like, do I really want to hit this thing? He's way too cute, and he has an orange on his head.
Yes. And even too, let's say for instance you're a monk that's like, hey, I don't really know if I want to like go full dex, which I know that might sound kind of weird, but with custom lineage you get your feat of choice. What you're going to really want to do here with this is you're going to want to go magic initiate. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go and pick druid for your magic initiate. And the reason why is you're going to pick up Shillelagh as one of your cantrips of choice. The other cantrip can be whatever you feel like would work well for a capybara. But the most important one here is the cantrip Shillelagh, because what it does is as a bonus action, it allows us to basically touch any weapon, and then we can use our wisdom modifier for any attack and damage rolls for that weapon. And I think the damage automatically becomes a D8 for that as well. So with that, we can get a lot of our attacks, and we can scale it with wisdom instead of dexterity. And then in addition to, going this route, the leveled spell, the level 1 spell that you would get from Druid would obviously be Goodberry, which means you can just spawn a bunch of, nectarines that you just, like, have sitting atop of your head. So you're basically, like, this chilled out little large land rodent that swims. You're always seen with fruit for some reason. No one really wants to attack you, even though you can also be seen riding on top of like animals that would try to kill most normal people, because that's the other part to this build that I think is really funny. You have stuff like this where it's like you just have like capybaras just riding on top of animals, where it's like for some reason this creature is just content not attacking you. that swim. Like, it really does encapsulate like all of the capybara, because it's like normal creatures would need to pass a ridiculously high wisdom saving throw in order to hit you. And there's literally nothing in the spell Sanctuary that says you can't just like ride along on top of other animals, or like on top of other creatures. You're not harming them. That's the only
You
caveat.
just hop on his back.
Yeah.
Just ride an alligator around. You get like a carrot on a stick kind of thing, except it'd be like a piece of meat or whatever. A piece of meat on a stick, ride your alligator.
This is one of the dumbest builds I've ever come up with. I love how like fully sent you were when I'm like, and it lets you spawn an orange. You're just like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's great. All right, so I got one more.
All right.
I got one more. All right, so this is not that it's not like funny, like my horse ninja idea or whatever. It's just an idea that I think is kind of cool. Is mixing Hexblade Warlock with a Rune Knight fighter. So just something that I think would be kind of tough, like physically tough. I don't usually build things like based on what I think would be cool in combat, obviously. But the idea here is like Earth Genasi Race
Oh.
gives you the Blade Ward cantrip, but you can do it as a bonus action, right?
Yeah.
And so you can use it as a bonus action, which gives you resistance to physical damage. And you can do that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, which is pretty great. I would go into Warlock just for 2 levels, probably, though. For like Hexblade and for Invocations, I would get like the Invocation that makes Eldritch Blast either push them away, and also the one that pulls them to you from Eldritch Blast, or, you know, really whatever else is in there. It's just to make Eldritch Blast have some utility, because you're not going to be using it unless things are far away from you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so then you could use Eldritch Blast as like a hook to bring things closer, or to knock things off a cliff if you are if you're out of melee range. Then in Warlock, you could also take like the Shadow Blade spell, which would turn your melee weapon into a 2d8. But that one is concentration, and if you're up in front, like getting hit, maybe that's not a great idea. Plus, you're going to be a fighter for the most part, so that's, you know, probably better. With your Merge with Stone ability from your race, you can also do like Pass Without a Trace, and you can move across difficult terrain without expending extra movement, which makes it easier to close distances as a fighter, which can sometimes be an issue. Okay, so you can do Blade Ward at will with a bonus action there, which gives you resistance for that turn against physical damage. You can use Eldritch Blast to pull things towards you or push them away. And then you have all the benefits of your Rune Knight runes, which are all rooted in your Constitution score. As a Hexblade, your attack and damage rolls and all of your spells, if you go further into Warlock, all of them use Charisma. So you could basically have like Strength and Dexterity and Intelligence all as low dump stats if you wanted, and just pump everything into Constitution Charisma, and you'll be a fighter that gets multi-attack as a Hexblade, using your Charisma for everything, and then you won't be reliant on Eldritch Blast for your hits. And then all the runes for Rune Knight, I feel, just kind of blend really well with the Hexblade kind of theme, that you're sort of, you know, you'd be like locking people down and doing these like air quote like spells that are all reliant on your runic weapon, which is a hex, you know, you could call it a Hexblade. I just think thematically, it's a pretty cool idea, and in combat, I think it would be really effective. And you could be in like heavy ass armor and stuff.
Yeah, I think even with all of this included, the utility for it has a lot. Like you mentioned, using things like Grasp of Hadar to like pull a creature towards you, and like that's really good for closing the gap.
Yeah.
That's something that fighters struggle with a lot.
And you'd have the you could use Armor of Agathis as well. It lasts for an hour, you know, Armor of Agathis. So as a fighter, you're getting up there into melee range. Anybody that like hits you is going to take extra damage from that Armor of Agathis. You could take Hellish Rebuke, like to give yourself another reaction, because as most classes, you don't really have very many reactions. So Hellish Rebuke is pretty great. You'll get to use it a hell of a lot more often than you would as a regular Warlock. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Hex would also be a really good feature
Yeah.
too. I mean, Hex with like multi-attack is a menace.
Yeah, you could hex and multi-attack.
Yeah, that's a lot of extra damage just with that combo.
Hex is another concentration one though, but like hell yeah, whenever you deal damage to that target, it's not like the first one. It's just like every attack deals an additional d6.
Yep.
So I would be getting like Warcaster to give yourself advantage on those concentration saves for Hex, but like Armor of Agathis and Blade Ward, not concentration, plus all your runes. Does that all make sense?
It does. That's a lot though. I mean, even with all the runes you get, like when you first get into fighter, you get some really good options,
Yeah.
like right off the bat.
The Fire Rune is like super good here. I think that's probably for Rune Knight their best one. It like locks people down, so you can hit a creature with a weapon. You can shackle them. They have to they're restrained if they fail a strength saving row. So like restrained creatures, you have advantage on those attacks, man. And they're taking fire damage every turn, plus your attack damage, plus your hex damage, plus your giant's might damage, which on one of your attacks every turn as a Rune Knight, you deal an extra d6.
Oh, I love the delete action. I love the delete action so much.
Yeah.
Oh man.